to the Connect the Dots podcast. Jeffrey Klein has conversations with a diverse array of successful people, sharing their stories to educate, inspire, and entertain. Here is your host, Jeffrey.
My guest today is Shantell Martin, who has managed to carve out a unique style and voice in the contemporary art world. Her mastery of the spontaneous hand-drawn line has captivated an audience of international patrons, admirers, and collectors alike. Her art is exhibited and sought after by many top museums, galleries, and art spaces, such as the Whitney Museum in New York City, the Oculus, the World Trade Center in New York City, Governor's Island, and the Museum of Art, and a collaboration with a Pulitzer Prize-winning musician, Kendrick Lamar. She has worked with brands as varied as Google Creative Labs, The North Face, and B&B Italia. Welcome, Shantell.
Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are.
So I like to start at the beginning. If you could tell us where you were born, you got a bit of an accent, which I'm used to, and what did your parents do for a living?
So I was born in Southeast London in Greenwich, and actually the hospital that I was born in doesn't exist there anymore. It was Greenwich District Hospital, and it's no longer there, but it's kind of a funny place to be born because it's just across the road from the Greenwich Meridian line, you know, that line that basically says, you know, this is the time, and this is one side of it, you're on one side of the line, and one side of it, you're on the other. And my mum works in a home for the mentally disabled. I don't know if that's the right PC term these days, but yeah, so she works there, underpaid and overworked. And I don't know my dad, so he's maybe out there doing something.
So when you were a kid, did you have an idea, you know, when you're like 6 or 7, if someone said, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was it always artist, or did you have anything else that kind of sprang to mind?
Yeah, you know, when I was 6 or 7, no one ever asked me those questions, you know, because if you're from where I'm from, no one's thinking about what you do when you grow up, because no one finishes school, and no one really, if they get a job, it's, you know, it's a very laborious job in the sense that, you know, people are movers or cleaners or mostly unemployed. So, you know, where I'm from, we don't really, you know, I think maybe in school you have more of that where people are asking you what you want to be, but I never really personally had that experience. So I never knew being an artist was a thing, actually. But if you perhaps asked me what I wanted to be as a child, with all of that said, I probably would have said one of two things. One of them would be an athlete, because I was very fast. I was a fast runner. So that's something I knew I could actually do and had the ability to do. And the other thing would probably be like a cartoonist, because I love watching cartoons. So I think, you know, in lieu of having external or kind of, you know, goals beyond the things that you can see, you know, perhaps my goals were the things that were tangible to me, or the things that I actually did as a child. And one of them was a lot of running, and the other one was watching a lot of TV.
Did you have a favorite cartoon? I'm a big fan of cartoons and animation in role.
You know, I think a lot of those 80s cartoons, so you have Gummy Bears, Thundercats, Visionaries, Brave Star, G.I. Joe, a lot of those, Saturday Morning, you know, even Smurfs and things like that were fun.
I actually love the Smurfs. It sounds from the environment you get and where you grew up that it was fairly insulated from thinking bigger and growing to something. Did you still have role models when you were growing up? Anyone you looked at, whether it was in your community or just on the TV or somewhere, that you're like, oh, there's something that could be interesting if I could get there?
Yeah, I think, you know, now we take for granted, for, you know, for better or worse, social media and TV and all of those things do give us such a window into the options of things we can do and the people that we can be. When I was growing up, when I was younger, you know, we didn't have that. And I think on TV, so to speak, it was more, you know, it's Disney Club or Saturday morning TV. So you don't really want to aspire to maybe be a talk show host. But I think, you know, the person maybe who inspired me in the sense, but for different reasons, was just my grandmother, because she was always sewing or doing tapestry or knitting us really ugly cardigans or scarves that we would have to wear to school. And now I appreciate it, but I do think I was probably subconsciously inspired that my grandmother had her own space. She could control what she wanted on TV. She didn't have to argue with anyone. You know, like she felt like a boss to me. You know, I didn't really experience anyone having control of their space or their TV or their time. And then at the same time was kind of creative. So, you know, I think in a roundabout way, I think I was inspired by that as a child.
And it sounds from that description, something that just occurred to me was that you're looking for the kind of independence and creative independence. Is that a fair comment?
As a child, you know, I didn't fit in. I grew up in Southeast London. I grew up in a place called Thamesmead. So if anyone's seen Clockwork Orange or The Misfits or a bunch of car commercials, it's a very like brutalist council estate, or you might say in America, like the projects. And it was built in the late 1960s. And, you know, in that area, you know, it's kind of an interesting place to grow up, but it was at that time predominantly white, racist, and working class, very working class. And I'm this little brown kid with an afro. And so, you know, for me, I think what happened is, you know, whenever I walk outside of my door, I'm treated differently or I'm treated like an other. And I think in a sense that built into me this confidence or this defiance to be myself or to find my own path or to at least understand that there must be something else other than this. Not that I knew what that was or was exposed to that, but I think that imagination or that hope or just that understanding that there must be something else kind of existed there.
And how early did you pick up art supply? You know, did you have access to art supplies when you were in school or at
Yeah,
home?
you know, I think for all of us, you know, we think about this, pens and pencils are literally probably one of the most accessible tools that we have on the planet. You know, I think it doesn't really matter like what income bracket or class or etc. you're coming from. There's typically pens or pencils around or you have access to them. And so it's interesting. We all start off really on the equal plane, I feel like, in that space where naturally as children, we navigate to pens and to pencils and to coloring and into drawing. And then it's more of a question of like, well, when did you stop or did you stop? And for me, it's mostly I didn't stop, unlike a lot of other people in that sense, because there is this thing with art and drawing, especially at school, where you know we tell children, oh, that's not how you do that, you know, that's not how you draw a house, that's not how you draw a person, and you know that's coming from the teacher or the parent. And when you see someone else that can do it the way that the teacher or the parent's telling them, then at a very young age we can get very discouraged and believe that we can't do something that literally we could do as a 2-year-old. And so I think there is such a power to drawing and creating, and if you're listening to this and you don't believe you can draw, of course you can, because you did it as a 2-year-old or as a 5-year-old or as a 6-year-old. And the reasons that we could do it at that age is because it's this natural gift that connects our head to our heart to our hand. And for me, it was this organic and this natural outlet, because I don't think I had an outlet really in any other way. So just picking up a pen that was super accessible to me just allowed me to pick it up and then just get anger out, like get some frustration out, or at least just imagine these landscapes or these people or these universes. You know, it's a canvas to explore and to imagine and to invent and to create. On the other hand, it's an outlet to express yourself or to express your feelings when you don't really know how to express them in any other ways.
Yeah, it's something you said reminded me of a quote I've used a lot, which is, you know, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing.
Yeah.
And the idea that, you know, things that we do as a kid, you're like, oh, that's okay when you're a kid, but then when you get older, you're supposed to give those up. And I always tell people that I like to feed my inner child.
Yeah.
And I think creativity is something that should be, you know, Maya Angelou said, you know, use as much creativity as you want. You can never use it up. It just, you know, I'm paraphrasing, you know, but you keep getting more when you use it. And
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what happens when we get older, that all of a sudden it's like, oh no, now you have to be serious. I fight against that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Now you talked about pens and pencils. Now you're known for that, kind of black marker. When did that become your thing? And you decided, oh wait, this is kind of cool what I can create with just this kind of pure, black marker.
Yeah. I think even from a very, very young age, I've always been attracted to using pens and markers over pencils. There's
Mhm.
always been something, and I don't know if I can put my finger on it, but even from a young age, there's been something that doesn't feel right about pencils. It doesn't feel like there's something right that you can erase
Mhm.
yourself or your work or the thing that you did. I think it also encourages you to see things as mistakes.
Mhm.
When you draw with a pen or a marker, you're in a way you're living with your mistakes, and you understand that those mistakes are not mistakes. It's just process. It's just you on a journey. It's just you trying to learn. It's just you trying to grow. And why would you want to erase that? And so for me, there is this sense where if you commit to something, then really commit to it and see yourself in it. And now, someone that's been working and drawing primarily and predominantly with an ink marker for many, many years, there's something really nice about that, because I know that I have to be confident and good with my tool, because if I'm not, you can see it. There's something about when you work with color, for example, it's very easy to hide beneath the color, or amongst the color, because it's pretty and our brains get it, and our brains put those colors in like a natural hierarchy. But when it's just a line, or when it's just a black and white work, it's very bare and it's very honest, and you can see any hesitation, really. You can see any insecurity in that. And so I like that sense that the tool pushes me to be better because I'm more exposed in a way.
Two things, came up through when you were saying. One, in terms of what you think of, we describe them as permanent markers. I mean, that's what they're
Yeah.
called a lot of times. And I think there's something about your expression and having it be permanent, like it doesn't matter whatever it is, whether it be good or bad, it's your expression, and therefore it's in the world and it should stay there. I don't know if you're familiar with, I don't know if it was a show called, well, it's Bob Painting with Bob Ross. Do you know the joyful
Um,
painter?
I've seen him around, and I know who that is. I'm coming from England, so we
Yeah.
had kind of our different versions of that in a way, or
He,
him.
he was a very interesting guy, I think, in terms of, had a painting show, and it was pretty rare to have something like that on TV. And he had this very calming, kind of almost meditative voice that he would talk about happy clouds and things. But one of the things he talked about when he would make mistakes is he had a term for them called happy accidents, which I
Mm,
loved. And I think that that's kind of what you're talking about, is like, you got to live, living with your mistakes, not as mistakes, but as part of the process of your expression.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly. So, people ask me, well, when you're working on these giant walls, what happens if you make a mistake? And I say it's all one big mistake. I've just learned to enjoy the process.
I love that. Speaking, you do something pretty unique that I was reading about called lithography. Can you kind of share how that's a different process than what most people think of, people who do drawing?
Yeah, so for me, lithography, and pretty much this is describes my career path, is that, lithography is when you are working in the moment, you're working real time, there's potentially an audience there. And that, in a way, has been the foundation of my work. I started drawing professionally as a career in Japan as a VJ, a visual jockey. So I would be drawing live drawn digital analog visuals in either these Japanese kind of avant-garde clubs drawing to Bluto dancers or circuit benders, or in these Japanese mega clubs of thousands of people. But essentially what I'm doing is, stream of consciousness, following the pen, drawing live, seeing where that takes us, and bringing the whole audience on that journey with us.
And I've watched some of the video, and it's incredible. How how is it different for you than when you decide, okay, or do you ever work this way? You're like, okay, I'm gonna here's a canvas, I'm going to draw, this particular thing, or do you not operate that way?
Yeah, I
I guess
don't operate. You're setting
is there ever
yourself
an
up to
intention?
fail. Yeah, I feel like if I was to operate that way, I'm just setting myself up to fail because, then I'm saying there's a plan and there's a predictable outcome that I'm trying to achieve. And that's just not the way I work. I think there's definitely some artists that work that way. I, at heart, am an improvisational artist. I'm someone that my strength is being spontaneous and improvising and working in the moment and kind of only just seeing really what's in front of me at that time versus a predetermined result. And so the magic of that is that the work that you create or the music that I create or the product that I'm creating at that time in that moment only exists in that space, in that time, in that place, on that canvas. And there's something really magical about that. And I think there's something that really kind of speaks to what humanity is when you can create in the moment and create something that previously never ever existed. And then on top of that could only exist in that moment that you created it. And there's something continuously magical and rewarding and mystical also at the same time about that process.
I'm going to ask a question. I don't know how you're going to answer, but I'll throw it out there because it's like say interesting. So, do you think that life imitates art, or art imitates life?
I think we shouldn't put things in boxes. It's all the same. I think if we're doing that, we're creating divisions. And I think the less we divide, the more creative and connective and more experiences we'll have.
Awesome answer. I apologize for trying to put things in the box. I'm all about thinking outside the box. You said we could all draw, and I think that is somewhat true. My question is, can we all learn to draw well?
You can all learn, I think you're asking the wrong question. I think, can you all learn to be yourselves? Yes. Can you all learn to draw like someone else might? Perhaps not, but that's not the point. I think the point is that drawing is an expression of self, and it can be. And so can we all learn to express ourselves through this medium of drawing? 100%.
I'll share with you a story. When I was younger, I used to play Pictionary with a bunch of friends, and we had one particular friend who was very artistic and did little illustrations, and he was not the one who did well because he would take too long to try and make everything perfect, or my stick figures would communicate quicker what I was trying to get at. So I do believe that communicating things in visuals can be done in lots of different ways. And it's not about high art, as it were. It's about, can you communicate what you're trying to? Can you express the message you're trying to get across?
Yeah.
And I think
and
in
also,
that way,
I think it's just a different skill set, like being able to draw something like quite realistically, or be able to shade, or be able to, do perspective. That's definitely one way of doing something and a different skill set. Being able to create something new and original in a sense that it just never existed before, that's a different skill set. And not that one is better than the other, it's just a different approach in a way.
yeah, I think that's the thing about creativity in general. There's no right way to be creative. There's lots of different ways, and I often say, because I consider myself very creative, I don't always consider myself an artistic in the technical sense. But I don't think it matters. That's the other thing that I think you're saying is it doesn't matter. It's not better or worse. It's just different. Shantell, you've been all over the world with your art. If you look back to when you were younger in East South London, and you thought, wow, now you look back and say, I'm really surprised that I'm here, either in a location or talking to a certain person. Is there anywhere you're like, wow, I can't believe that happened?
Of course, all the time, every day. I honestly wish I could go back to my younger self and have this talk with multiple versions of my younger selves at different ages, because at the end of the day, I draw, like I pick up a pen and draw, but that has enabled me to literally travel the globe. It's allowed me to work with incredible museums and institutions. It's allowed me to teach in academia through so many established, recognized schools. It's brought my work into classrooms. Kids have been studying Shantell Martin as the artist for over a decade now in classrooms, and I meet 20-year-olds on the street that say, I've been studying your work and in sixth grade, and it really inspired me to do X, Y, Z. I think it's just really bizarre for me to think about all the people that have been inspired, and all the things I've been able to do just because I pick up a pen and I draw. Like, that doesn't make any sense sometimes, but I think it's just a reflection of consistency, of defiance, of creativity, of manifesting in many ways. And yeah, I don't know why I've been chosen to do this, and why there's a part of me that always wants to progress and push forward and iterate and make things better or challenge myself more. And it's also at the same time never enough, like there's always more challenges I want to take on, or I want to take on more scale, and I want to have the most recognizable line on the planet, and I want I just want to see my work and my lines and my philosophy in even more places. And so where does that come from? I don't know, because it definitely didn't come from Thamesmead, where I grew up. But yeah, it's a good question.
Well, related, you just talked about how you're surprised, like, that your drawing has inspired others. So let me flip it a bit and ask, what inspires you?
What inspires me is to see people in their element, creating and enjoying. What inspires me is to collaborate. What inspires me is discovering artists that have been improvising or doing what they love for many years. For example, this weekend that just passed, I went to see Lonnie Holly, who's a musician, well, sculptor, artist turned musician. I think he's in his 80s. And he was just on stage killing it. Like he had a band and they did this beautiful improvised set. And it's so inspiring to see people get lost together. When you can creatively get lost together on a stage and invite people in to experience that with you. For me, that's like one of the most inspiring things that I think I'll ever see, in that sense of that kind of genre, in the sense where people don't know what they're going to do, but they have good intention. They have a stage, they have instruments or canvases or an agenda, in a sense, and then they just make something from nothing.
Yeah, I love that. It's the collaboration piece of bringing together creative people and improvisation, living in the now, which is
Yeah.
most of us don't do well.
Yeah.
You have to work at it, I think. And again, I think there's sort of traditional education and society has, I think, tries to put hampers on our ability to do that. And I'm hoping that it's going to change. And it seems there are artists like you who are helping do that. If you were going to give advice to kind of someone who's like, well, I like drawing, or I like art, what kind of advice from your experience would you share?
Great, do it more. Like, why not? It's super easy. Get yourself a little notebook or a sketchbook that fits in your pocket. And, when you're at the cafe or you're waiting for someone or you're in between meetings, pull it out and draw or write or make a mark. I think with drawing and writing, and also, words are also lines, words are made up of lines. So I feel like drawing and writing are the same thing in that regards. And, just make things and then I share them. And that's it. We don't have to make these things super overcomplicated. Just make things and share them. That's it. And you might just share it with yourself. You might share it with your family. You might share it with your friends, but just make something.
By most objective, and again, I know we don't like to put things in labels or boxes, but just bear with me for a moment. By many measures, you're a successful artist. you've traveled and you've gotten to collaborate with lots of people, and people come see your work, you've exhibited. But that's how everyone else defines success. How does Shantell define success?
It's funny because I was just going through that like traditional list in my head of like successes, and my success, or what success looks like for me, is the freedom to create what I want, where I want, however I want. And also success for me looks like having a safe creative space where I can just show up and make things and collaborate. And that's it. It's simple. It doesn't need to be much more than that. I think I've been striving most of my life just to create these spaces for myself where I can just go in and make things and explore things and question things and collaborate with people and draw things. And that is what makes me happy. It'd be on a, if you want to X that, super success is being able to do that anywhere in the world at any time I wanted. And so, that's what ultimately I believe like I'm striving for.
Yeah, and it goes back to what you kind of said when we were talking about earlier about kind of creative independence, creative freedom. That's kind of the definition for you, I think, of success is complete creative freedom.
And it is interesting because also there is this, I think, this weird societal expectation of success in the sense that, it's for a certain personality or a certain type of person or a certain look of person or a certain demeanor of person. And often people, because I'm nice and approachable, which sounds absurd, they don't believe that I'm successful if they've not seen my work or familiar with me. And often they're like, oh, kind of good luck. And I think that's because, I don't roll in with an entourage. I'm not wearing anything fancy. I'm not like talking up about everything I'm doing. I'm not being aloof and mysterious and unapproachable. It's just, that's not my way to do things. That's just not my approach to things. But, often I'll be at, when I launched my collection at North Face and I was at the store in London, and there was just a couple came in and shopped and were looking at my collection, and they were like, oh, the artist is there. And they're like, where? I'm like, there, that's her. And they were really confused because I was like, oh, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, by myself, just wanted to pop in and see. And so there is just this weird societal notion that I think encourages a lot of bad behavior that comes with success. And that isn't the only way to do it. I think there's many ways to do it, and there's many ways to still be kind and nice and accessible and polite, and still work at a huge kind of scale at the same time.
Yeah, it's a shame, I think, that oftentimes success leads to arrogance and, as you said, bad behavior, when it's a choice that people make. They decide, like, am I going to be this way or not? And I think we're all people at the end of the day. And you look at these celebrities, the famous people, and it's hard because in this kind of influencer world we now have, there's power with people to really make that choice even more.
Yeah, or make it appear like that is to the masses like the choice or the only path as well.
Yeah, it's I have younger children, well, teenage children who are pretty influenced. It gets harder in some ways to keep them grounded, and it takes work to really try and express like that's not real, number one, and that's not what's important. I try my little bit. What do you think is, so you've kind of, as you said, kind of blazed your own path in terms of the way that you approach art. What trend do you see in the art scene or the art world that you think is evolving or emerging or coming next?
Yeah, I'm really the wrong person to ask about that because I just don't really pay much attention to what's going on. I kind of live in my own bubble. But I think, in general, if I am to try and answer that question, I think we're seeing a lot more people being relaxed in the expectations of an artist with regards to what they can or can't do. When I first moved to America back in 2008, 2009, and I was doing multiple different things. You know, I'm talking, I'm doing the projection stuff, I'm doing the art stuff. You know, I'm doing little cameos on TV. You know, people were like, you can't do all those things. It's going to devalue your fine art. And I'm like, well, why can't I do all the things that I'm interested in? That doesn't make any sense to me. And I think now we are seeing more and more expectation for artists to be able to do more things. And so there's definitely, I don't know if it's an expansion or a relaxation on that. But I think that's nice to see.
Yeah, again, we talked about, people love to label things.
Yeah.
And I think with creativity, it's hard to say, oh, you're a this,
Yeah.
and it's something about, I think, the need for us to define things very specifically so we can understand them and wrap our heads around them. And art doesn't work that way, and humans don't work that way. And so lots of different things to lots of different people, and that's great, and that should be embraced. So it's nice to hear that you see that kind of being embraced more. Okay, well, you didn't want to answer. You said you were the right person to ask about you live in your bubble. So what's next in the bubble world of Shantell Martin?
So I've been trying to answer that question a lot by just saying nothing, because I want to also encourage myself and others to do more of nothing. And what I mean by that is, as creative people, we're always expected to be doing something. And when you turn around and say you're doing nothing, people get confused. But actually doing nothing is very difficult and also very necessary, because if we're always on that wave and we're only going up and up and up and up, it's going to crash at some point. So you need to build in these breaks in between your projects or space to get bored, to wonder, to discover new things. That aside, some projects I've already worked on that will be coming out next year is, the first one is a beautiful candle, or should I say candles, with a company out of Brooklyn called Joya. And I wanted to make a candle for focus. You know, when we want to focus as business people, as creatives, we put a playlist on, we kind of tidy up our spaces, but we very rarely think about the scents or the notes of the room. And so I've created this candle that gives you, the smaller version gives you, I think, over 1,400 minutes of focus time. And the larger one is over 8,000 minutes of focus time. And so the idea is that you put this on in the background, and this candle, the sense from the candle, gives you that space to get in that stream of consciousness focus space. And so that's coming out in January. And, very well made. Joy are like amazing artisans. And so everything is hand done and made in Brooklyn. And then in March, I'm releasing Shantell Sands, which is a typeface based on my handwriting. And I got Google Fonts have signed up to support the project, which is great. So you'll be seeing it in Google Fonts at some point. But the amazing thing with that is Shantell Sands will be OFL. It will be an open font license. So essentially it's free for anyone to use. And so that's kind of my gift to the world for 2023 and beyond. And aside from that, I'm leaning in, and consistently I'll be doing more of my musical performances. And I haven't really figured out how to articulate it or what to call it, other than a musical performance. But it's not really either of those things. But keep an eye out and come and see one of those shows, kind of somewhere in America and perhaps in Europe at some point.
Very exciting. We're a big fan of candles in our home.
Oh, cool.
So I'm kind of excited. We're actually at a pop-up shop down in Cape May, and one of my daughters, Gemma, we spent a good 20 minutes smelling a bunch of different candles, and she found one that she said was the best smelling candle she'd ever smelled. So she bought it, and so I'm curious to see how it influences her. But I definitely think scents do play a role.
Well, she should definitely get one of these. They go through different scents. So the smaller one has two scents. One is called Silk Pajamas, and the other one is called Dragon Well. And so I'd love to see, what she thinks of those.
All right. No, definitely. It's something I enjoy. And then the musical arts is something that we love. And so I'm excited to see what that looks like. Now we're at the portion where I'm going to ask you 9 semi-rapid fire questions. They never go as fast as I intend, and I think I'm to blame for that, so just bear with me. If a movie was made about your life, who would you want to play you?
I don't know people's names. You know, I'd say me, perhaps. I'm alive. Why can't I play me?
I love it. Should stories always have happy endings?
Do they? No. Yeah.
Do you have now this isn't as an artist, do you have a favorite emoji?
My favorite emoji is the party one. You know, the one that's got like
Mhm.
a party hat on, is maybe blowing the whistle. I tend to just excessively and overuse that emoji.
Fun one. Um, can you name one of your favorite songs?
Orbital, The Box, Part 2.
Check that out.
That's a
Do you
random
have a
one.
favorite? Do you have a favorite social media platform?
No, it's called offline. Yeah.
I like it. Can you name a book that left a lasting impression on you?
Um, Goldie's biography.
Can you name one of your favorite movies?
Easily. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. The original one, of
The
course.
original. Okay, just making
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
um, is there one thing you can't live without?
Probably my comb. I have a comb in my hair at all times. It's been there for about 20 years. It's not going anywhere.
And if you could be credited with inventing something, what would it be?
It would be a sketch projector.
Sounds very cool. I'll have to get working on that. Shantell, this was awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your story and everything. But is there anything you want to share with people? How do we find you? Where's the best place, to go and find out all the creative, amazing things that you're doing?
Yeah, I think I've got a good old website, which is fun and playful, and, Instagram and Twitter and all those good old places. And then, yeah, my name is spelt with an S, uh, a T, two L's, and no E at the end. So Shantell Martin. So easy to find if you're starting off in the right place.
I'll make sure I have those in the show notes. Again, this has been a treat for me. I really appreciate it. And thanks most of all for helping us connect the dots.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking your time to listen to this podcast. Please subscribe on your preferred podcast platform so you don't miss any future episodes. If you could also do me a favor and please leave a review on iTunes, I would really appreciate that. Remember, story matters and is the best way to connect the dots.